All right, we're here with Dan Roche, who has proven once again that any time is a good time to talk baseball because he is in Foxborough at Patriots training camp. But big weekend for the Red Sox as they take on the Yankees coming up this weekend at Fenway Park. The trade deadline's Tuesday, but Dan, I want to start with Alex Cora because the Red Sox, as you requested, end up signing him to a 3-year extension. This is such huge news.
Yeah, however it evolved, Joe, I don't think anything matters right now, right? I think the most important thing is you lock up the face of the franchise, arguably, in Alex Cora, and you get him done, and you've got like 4 years with Cora right now. So things are good if you're a Red Sox fan, and I know a lot of Red Sox fans would say at the trade deadline coming up next Tuesday that if they could have Alex Cora signed or acquire a right-handed batter or reliever, they'd go with Alex Cora. So check that one off the box. And I think, to me, logic plays in here. The fact that, Alex Cora said for the longest time, I don't know if I want to return. I'll figure it out with my family after the season. Well, something happened when they approached him. And I also think that over the course of getting to know Craig Breslow for the past 7 months, something had to align with him and Alex, where they had to get on the same page. And Alex probably said, you know what? I maybe understand where you're coming from now, and I think we can do this with infusion of talent from the younger players and the talent they have now. And now if the payroll goes down, they can add players as they go here via free agency or the trade market. And I think everyone's on the same page. So good for everybody. And we've talked in the past about Cora and the job that he's done and how good he is. So they get the deal done. Cora stays here, gets some security, which is good for everybody involved. And one of the quick thing about that, Joe, in my mind is in reading, some of the papers and things like that about the trade deadline coming up, the Red Sox have a core, right, of Devers, Cedar Rafaela, and Brian Bale all signed long-term. Alex Cora is bilingual, right? And that also, it's not a major factor or anything like that, but his ability to be able to communicate with everybody up and down that roster easily, maybe that's a nice thing to have too if you're the Boston Red Sox with this organization.
And Dan, now with Alex Cora in tow for the next couple of years, Craig Breslow is going to work here at the trade deadline, and he's already made a move. It just happened today where the Red Sox reacquired James Paxton. He was with the Los Angeles Dodgers. They just made a trade for him in which they dealt away a 17-year-old kid in Moises Boulevard. What do you make of this move? And it does add some depth to their starting pitching.
Well, I think it goes a long way in the whole Alex Cora sign, right? He gets a 3-year contract extension. And unlike with the Chaim Bloom situation, he was afraid to pull the trigger on some trades and was very late in doing it and everything else. They've struck. We got the Tuesday trade deadline looming and want to see something done by the Red Sox. And Alex Cora is the same way. He wants that commitment from ownership and Craig Breslow. So they seem to be on the same page. And they get a deal done for James Paxton. Doesn't really cost them much, 17-year-old prospect. That's the way you got to get a deal done. But they struck early, Joe. You and I have talked about this time and time again. They need starting pitching help. They need that, a right-hand batter, a couple of relievers. So to see Breslow do that early, get Paxton, not give up much, that's exactly what you want. Now go get a right-handed bat. Don't give up much. And if you have to go out and make some new moves with stay away from the big three and Marcelo Meyer and Roman Anthony, as well as Kyle Teal, and you can make some moves with some of the pitching that you have and some of the Rule 5 guys that are coming up next year, go make another deal. And if you have to, you don't want to, it might be tough to do, but you don't want to give up Kenley Jansen. But if you can get some really, really good prospects or a ready major leaguer, maybe you think about that too. So the one good thing, Joe, this is a good sign to everybody, the fans, Alex Cora, and more importantly, the players in that clubhouse. They've made a commitment to this team. Go out and get it, guys, because we believe in you.
Yeah, and it was interesting when the Royals made a deal for Hunter Harvey. There were a lot of quotes within their clubhouse about the excitement of the fact that the front office made a move that helped bolster the Major League club. And I know some people said that specific deal was an overpay, but it made everybody in the clubhouse feel good. And with this move, Dan, it just makes sense, right? We talked about the prospect in which the Red Sox gave up. It wasn't one of their top prospects or any of those big three guys that you just mentioned. It was a piece that they were able to deal away, and you get a nice depth piece back in James Paxton. Now, the interesting thing about this, Dan, is that James Paxton, he's 35 years old, and he actually hasn't thrown over 100 innings since 2019 when he was with the New York Yankees. And this year, the numbers on the surface didn't look that bad. He was 8-2, 4.43 ERA in 18 starts, but the under the hood numbers, I think, scared the Dodgers to the point where they were willing to DFA him, even though they also knew that they were going to get a couple starters back. His four-seam fastball, it got hit pretty hard. The biggest thing was if he could elevate that pitch, then it ended up doing pretty well. But I'm very interested to see how Andrew Bailey works it with his stuff, because he has done wonders with so many guys on this staff. And then the second thing, Dan, I'm very curious to see is, do the Red Sox go with this six-man rotation? Because I just mentioned the Paxton part of it, the fact that he hasn't thrown a ton of innings since 2019. But as you know, Tanner Houck, he's already thrown more innings this year than he has in any other season in his major league career. Cutter Crawford's thrown a ton of innings. Brian Bayo, same thing. So there are a lot of guys that they're going to have to manage the workloads moving forward. But it's nice to have another established piece now in James Paxton, somebody you already know and somebody that has had a lot of success here in the big league.
Yeah, you can give him another option. That's the good thing. And like you said, it's a veteran arm, so they can get that done. To go to a six-man rotation, maybe that helps them, right? Maybe cuts the innings back over the course of time, and maybe that's the route to go. So you get a couple more relievers, and then you're all set with your pitching staff. So yeah, again, nothing but positives from this. And again, a guy that's familiar with Boston, familiar with the Red Sox clubhouse, familiar with Alex Cora and most of his teammates. So I think it's a win-win. And again, it shows everybody that they are serious business about getting a playoff spot and getting to the playoffs this season, which is all that the fans want right now.
Yeah, and Craig Breslow, as soon as they announced that Alex Cora extension, he said, hey, we're going to be buyers at the trade deadline. This does a nice job just setting the tone for things. They still could use a right-handed bat. They could still use some bullpen help as well. So we'll see who Craig Breslow tries to go after next, and if he does make another move. There are a lot of intriguing options out there. I think Justin Turner is still one of those guys, Dan, from a right-handed bat standpoint, is somebody that you could possibly go out and get from the Blue Jays.
And you're not going to give up a lot either to get a guy like him. So that, to me, I think is everything. And I think that's to people in this organization. They, and I think Breslow and Cora are on the same page now with that. Alex has seen what these young guys can do, and you don't want to give up a ton here. And if you can get some of those players and pieces, then you do that. And like I said, you can package guys that are Rule 5 eligible coming up next year. And you get guys for, how many guys did they draft in this year's Major League Draft? How many arms? 14, 15 arms. Now maybe you can trade some guys that maybe you didn't think about trading before. So I think it all sets up well for now, and it all sets up well for the future. And I think maybe the one more interesting thing out of this whole thing, Joe, will be to see Craig Breslow if he gets tempted into dealing for the future at all, and how they handle that. Remember, Heimblum did that with Vasquez, and it kind of ripped the heart out of their clubhouse. It's got to be the right guy. It's got to be the right player. To do it with a guy like Kenley Jansen might be tough because, he's a reliable closer that you need to get your team into the postseason. But if you get some prospects, some really good prospects, and a major leaguer back, then maybe, just maybe it's someone else. But I think that's one thing to keep an eye on here as we approach Tuesday. Joe, I think we should end it with the fact that you now have one-upped me in that you have meditated with a major league pitcher who on a no-hitter. Explain that story. Yeah,
so I had a chance to work with Dylan Cease in the minor leagues, and there was we did a podcast episode with him. This was 6 years ago when he was in High A Winston-Salem in the White Sox system. And
you were calling games, right, on the radio?
I was calling games with the Winston-Salem Dash, and I asked Dylan if he wanted to come on for a podcast episode with myself and Jake Eisenberg, who's now one of the voices of the Kansas City Royals on the play-by-play side of things. And he was telling us about meditation, and we'd heard about this from Gavin Sheets, who's with the White Sox at the major league level. He told us, he's like, Dylan Cease is an interesting character. He's just really even-keeled. Like, he's got a good sense of himself. So we asked him, hey, would you meditate with us and do a with us? And we did. And the clip still lives on Twitter, so I dug that up, and it was fun to watch. And how neat is that he throws a no-hitter? Don Orsillo calls I think his fifth major league no-hitter on the TV call as well. I will say, Dan, I had a chance to catch up with Dylan a couple weeks ago when the Padres were at Fenway Park. You know what he told me his favorite ballpark was? Fenway Park. So
gotta love that.
So anyway, but
awesome.
that was really fun to watch him do that.
And that's a cool story that you'll always remember. And that's the beauty of the minor leagues, right? You just never know what guys are going to make it, who's going to be that, and who's going to be that superstar, who's going to throw a no-hitter. You just don't know who those players are going to be. And lo and behold, it's a guy that you meditated with in a broadcast booth.
Yeah,
that's pretty cool.
It's remarkable. Dan, final thought before we let you go, and that was great to bring up too, but the Yankees coming into town, and I looked it up. Dan, the Yankees, since that Verdugo home run that he hit at Fenway Park and the Yankees won that game, they're 10-22. And I just mentioned the White Sox. That's the only team worse than the Yankees since that game. And the Red Sox have gained 9.5 games on them. So this is going to be a fun series. What are you looking forward to watching in this series?
Well, it's the curse of the Verdugo, right? The Bambino's gone. Now it's the Verdugo for the Yankees, which is pretty cool if you're a Red Sox fan. I think you're going to look for, the Red Sox to right themselves. Both teams are trying to right themselves. What makes this an interesting series, right? The Yankees getting swept by the Mets in an embarrassment in New York or what have you. And their pitching and hitting, everything's kind of, fallen down since the Verdugo, home run, as you mentioned. And the Red Sox come off that big trip out of the All-Star break where they had momentum and they're 1-5. And granted, it's the Dodgers, but also a tough place in the Rockies where, it's just one of those you can get out of hand quickly places. So now if you're Alex Cora, he's been signed and here we go. Now, guys, it's time to take it to that next level and for this sprint down the stretch, because that really wasn't the end of the first half. So there's about 60-something games left to go here, around 60 games left to go, Joe. Now every game becomes huge, and it starts this weekend, and it'll be good for this Red Sox team because of the heightened awareness and everything it's different in Fenway when the Yankees are in town. So this is a good series, a good measuring stick for where they're at. And the other part of that, too, is, hey, give the ball to Brian Bayo when it's time for you to step up. We've seen Cutter Crawford and what he's done and become one of those big game pitchers. Now it's your turn, Bayo. Really step up here. Show that what you've got here. Show that maturity. Show that contract off and go get them. Go get the Yankees and have some fun tonight.
Yeah, it's going to be a fun series here at Fenway Park. It all starts tonight. Dan, thank you for the time as always. Have fun at Foxborough.